It started with the kind of small, almost forgettable gesture that people usually overlook. A simple sandwich handed to a stranger. Except, of course, the stranger wasn't a stranger at all. He was Denzel Washington, the kind of man who, even in the chaos of everyday life, commands a double take, a hushed whisper, and a quick text to a friend. "You won't believe who I just saw." And the little girl who handed him that sandwich? She had no idea she was about to set off a chain of events that would have governments panicking, pharmaceutical companies sharpening their knives, and the world holding its breath for the possibility of a miracle. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in a small Los Angeles park. Denzel was there without much fanfare. Baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses on, trying to enjoy a moment of solitude. He sat on a worn wooden bench, scrolling idly through his phone, probably expecting the day to pass like any other. But across the park, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, stood with her parents, clutching a wrapped sandwich in both hands. She glanced nervously at her mother, who gave the smallest nod, and then she crossed the grass with a bravery only children seem to possess. Denzel looked up when she stopped in front of him. Her voice was soft, but her words landed like a direct hit. "This is for you," she said, holding out the sandwich as if it were something sacred. He smiled, thanked her warmly, and accepted it. That was it, or at least that's what it looked like. To anyone else, it was just a sweet encounter between a child and a beloved celebrity. But what no one could see, not even Denzel, was the story hiding inside that sandwich. Because this wasn't an ordinary lunch. Her parents had made it themselves in their cramped kitchen, using ingredients they had sourced in secret. Inside the bread, nestled between the lettuce and the tomato, was a rare extract from a plant that most people had never even heard of, and for good reason. It was banned in multiple countries, including the United States, after early, unverified reports claimed it could cure chronic and terminal illnesses. Pharmaceutical giants had lobbied hard to have it declared unsafe, but whispers in certain circles suggested that the plant's healing properties were too real and too threatening to existing medical empires to be left on the market. The little girl's family wasn't in this for profit. They weren't activists or smugglers. They were desperate. Her uncle, a quiet man in his 40s, was dying from a degenerative condition that doctors had written off as incurable. They had tried every treatment available, emptied savings accounts, and even sold their car. Nothing had worked. But then, through a friend of a friend, they'd learned about the plant, about a community halfway around the world where people who had been given months to live were now thriving years later. The problem was, getting the extract into the hands of someone who could make the world pay attention was nearly impossible. Governments would shut it down. Corporations would bury it. They needed a figure big enough, respected enough, and loud enough to stand against that kind of pressure. And when they saw Denzel Washington in that park, it felt like fate had placed him there. The sandwich was their gamble. They figured if he felt something, anything, different after eating it, curiosity might drive him to look deeper. And if he found out what it was, maybe, just maybe, he'd have the power to bring it into the light. For 7 days after that afternoon, nothing happened. Denzel went about his life. The little girl's family heard nothing, saw nothing in the news. Her parents whispered at night about whether the plan had failed, about whether they just wasted their only shot. But on the 7th day, everything changed. It started with a press conference, one nobody had expected. Denzel, standing at a podium in front of a packed room of reporters, didn't waste time with pleasantries. He told the world that for years he had been quietly battling a debilitating health issue, one that had slowly eroded his energy, his focus, his ability to work. He had kept it private, only his closest circle knowing the truth. But after eating that sandwich, yes, he said it just like that, something happened. The pain was gone. The fatigue had lifted. Tests showed no trace of the illness that had been eating away at him. And then he said the words that would ignite a global frenzy. "I'm going to find out exactly what was in that sandwich, and I'm going to fund the research myself. If it can heal me, maybe it can heal the world." The room erupted. Cameras flashed like lightning. Social media exploded within minutes, with hashtags like #MiracleSandwich and #DenzelCure trending worldwide. Theories flew in every direction. Was it a publicity stunt? A hidden marketing campaign? A hoax? But as the hours passed and Denzel doubled down, sharing medical reports, appearing on late-night shows, and refusing to back down, the disbelief began to turn into something else. Hope. Of course, hope is the one thing that makes powerful people nervous. Within 48 hours, government agencies began issuing warnings about unverified medical claims. Pharmaceutical lobbyists flooded the airwaves with experts insisting that miracle cures didn't exist. News outlets that had initially covered the story with wide-eyed fascination suddenly shifted their tone, questioning Denzel's motives and credibility. But here's where the story took another turn. The little girl's family came forward, not to claim fame or money, but to tell the truth. They explained about their uncle, about the plant, about how they had hidden the extract in that sandwich. They even had photos, videos, and medical documents showing his recovery after taking it. The media went wild again. Interviews were requested from every corner of the globe. People began digging into the history of the plant, uncovering decades-old studies that had been mysteriously buried or discredited. Suddenly, this wasn't just about one man's miraculous recovery. It was about the possibility of a cure that had been kept from the public for decades. The debate got ugly fast. Some hailed the family as heroes. Others called them reckless for giving an untested substance to someone without his knowledge. The pharmaceutical companies? They were on the offensive, launching lawsuits, pushing for criminal charges, and warning of dangerous black market medicines. And in the middle of it all, Denzel stood his ground. He hired a team of independent scientists from multiple countries to study the plant, making sure their work was transparent and free from corporate influence. He pledged millions of his own money to ensure the research could continue without interference. And he made one promise to the world. If this extract truly worked, it would be made available to everyone. No patents, no price tags that only the rich could afford. But that promise made him enemies. There were whispers of surveillance, of his calls being tapped, of his movements being tracked. The little girl's family had to move out of their home after strangers began showing up at their door. At one point, an unmarked SUV was spotted outside their new address, its engine running for hours without moving. It was clear that powerful forces weren't going to let this play out quietly. Still, the momentum was too strong to stop. People from all over the world began sharing stories of similar plants in their regions, of family members who had mysteriously recovered after taking them. Social media became a battleground, part science, part conspiracy theory, part grassroots activism. And through it all, Denzel kept talking, kept showing up, kept pushing the conversation forward. Which leaves us here, in a moment where no one really knows what's going to happen next. Will the research prove the plant's power beyond a doubt, forcing governments to reconsider the ban? Will the corporations find a way to lock it down again? Or will this be one of those rare times when truth actually wins? The only thing certain is that it all started with a little girl and a sandwich. A gesture so small it could have been forgotten, but instead became the spark for something much bigger. And maybe that's the real lesson. Sometimes the world changes not because of grand speeches or billion-dollar deals, but because someone was brave enough to cross a park, hand over a gift, and believe that it might make a difference. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that every single one of us has the power to be that spark. You might not have a miracle plant in your kitchen or a chance encounter with a celebrity, but you have moments, small, quiet moments where you can choose to act. And you never know which of those moments might ripple outward into something extraordinary. So maybe the question we should all be asking isn't what's in the sandwich. Maybe it's what's in us. And if the answer is even a fraction of the courage that little girl had, then maybe, just maybe, the world still has a fighting chance. If you believe in that chance, share this story. Talk about it. Push for answers. Because if there's even the smallest possibility that a cure like this exists, silence isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a choice. And some choices are too important to get wrong.